Bhattacharya Ashtotarata Shishimad Abhay Charanarvindam Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai ISKCON Vibhuti Sangstavakacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadhi Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Shrimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Shrimati Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagna Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Samveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Reading from I'll Build You a Temple, the Juhu Story. October 1970 to October 1973. Let me put my eyes on here. Are we on page 71? I guess so. Arriving on the scene, a good fight. To provide flowers for the deities, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to cultivate a garden. He wrote me, "You can have the gardeners decorate the whole land with flowers, and if possible, some fruits also. Have a boundary fence so that everyone cannot enter it." And a week later, he added, he wanted Narayan to take charge of the gardening. Sometimes he may be difficult to live with, he acknowledged, but good manager means he's able to satisfy everyone and live in a cooperative manner with all the devotees. So if you manage things nicely, he can do tremendous work. Practically no one has more energy than Vishvakarma, the demigod architect and master builder after whom he had nicknamed Narayan. So Narayan actually was his Diksha name, but because he was good at building things, like he helped build the Rath Yatra car in San Francisco, and so many things. So Srila Prabhupada tagged on another name, Narayan Vishvakarma. Prabhupada called him Vishvakarma. Why Vishvakarma? Because Vishvakarma was the architect of the demigods. You know, just like here we have Premnath, or so many architects are famous in Bombay. But so amongst the demigods, Vishvakarma is the famous architect. He made so many things. So Prabhupada gave that name Narayan. But Narayan, he was tough to work with. Very, how do you say, eccentric person. What is an eccentric person? Someone who's not very flexible. My way, that has to be my way. So, still, Srila Prabhupada told Giriraj Swami, you engage him in flowers. We'll find out later it didn't last so long because of Narayan's attitude. And there was another devotee who actually was successful at growing flowers. What used to be the Gandhi Garden, they called it the Gandhi Garden because there was a statue of Gandhi there. Maybe most of you don't know, you never saw the Gandhi Garden. Right? But anyway, there was a statue of Gandhi, they called it the Gandhi Garden. So this other devotee, Sankadas, he actually could grow flowers. He made a nice flower garden, and he offered nice flowers, and from those flowers he made a garland. And Srila Prabhupada appreciated very much. If you grow your own flowers, Prabhupada appreciated that more than buying from the market. He thought, we have land, why we're not growing flowers? So he used to tell the Sangha. And Sangha took it serious, Sankadas. And although he was the cook, Sankadas was the cook, still he spent time in the garden and made flowers. So when Prabhupada came, he would offer a flower garland to Srila Prabhupada, and he would tell him, from our own garden, Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada would be very happy, very happy. Sankadas was a good cook, very good cook. And one day he told Srila Prabhupada, in that time the deity kitchen and the devotee kitchen was combined, no separate kitchen. So he was cooking for all the devotees, not so many devotees, maybe 10, 20 devotees in those days. And the deities. On the morning walk he told Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, I cooked for all the devotees and all the deity offerings in 1 kilo of ghee. And Prabhupada said, 1 kilo of ghee, so much? He thought it was less. So then he worked at it. He got it down to where he was only using ½ kilo of ghee. So he told Srila Prabhupada in the morning walk, Srila Prabhupada, now I'm cooking all the deity offerings and the devotee prasadam and only ½ kilo of ghee. And Prabhupada shook his head and said, you can't do anything. So, flowers, growing flowers, it's an important thing. Prabhupada wanted that. In Mayapur, they grow all their flowers for the deities. They have nice gardens. And there's a devotee in the Samadhi who takes care of all the flowers for Srila Prabhupada's garlands. His name is Ramanuja Das. He's a brahmachari there in Mayapur. And he's very systematic. He knows what flowers come, what time of the year. So as soon as that season is over for that flower, he's starting the next, sometimes aster, sometimes ganda, sometimes chrysanthemums, mums, according to the season. So there's always flowers for Srila Prabhupada's garlands. And that deity of Srila Prabhupada in the Samadhi is a pretty big deity. Requires a lot of flowers for the garland. Always, when you see that garland, all are homegrown. Homegrown. Like in America, they have tomatoes all year long, but in the summertime they have what they call homegrown. Homegrown means the local variety of tomatoes. And those tomatoes that are homegrown are always better tasting than the mass production tomatoes that come. So people are ready to purchase homegrown. Srila Prabhupada said, if you eat vegetables that is grown on the land where you live, you'll always have good health. You'll always have good health. Maybe that's because you'll be out in the sun and you'll get vitamin D3. Our devotees has less vitamin D3. And ladies are in India very problem for vitamin D3 because they want to be fair. They want to be gaudy, right? They don't want to be dark. If you go out in the sun, you get dark. More sun, more dark. You go to Tamil Nadu, everybody dark. More sun, right? So they don't want to get dark, so they don't go out in the sun, so they don't have vitamin D3, so they're easily sick. All of the people, there was research, statistics done, those persons that died from COVID, they checked their vitamin D3 levels. Almost across the board, they had low vitamin D3. So the advertisement was that they had comorbidities. They had already diabetes, high blood pressure, this, that. But many people, even though they had high blood pressure, even though they had diabetes, they still survived because they had higher levels of vitamin D3. Nowadays, the advertisement is, don't go out in the sun. If you go out in the sun, you'll get skin cancer. So people don't go out in the sun. So they have low vitamin D3. And 60 years ago, 70 years ago, even in the United States, most of the population were on farms. Most, like here in India, most of the population in villages. If you live in the village, there's no difficulty for vitamin D3 because you're out in the sun, right? Everybody lives in a small house. They don't stay in the house all day. They get out and they get sun, proper sunlight. Even in Srimad Bhagavatam it says, if you're not healthy, you want to become healthy, you worship the sun. Worship the sun. What does that mean? You get out in the sun. You get vitamin D3. Because vitamin D3, they call it the sunshine vitamin, it's not only helpful to keep the calcium in your bones. You need vitamin D3. Back in the early 1900s, 1910, 1912, small babies were getting a disease called crickets, right? That means their bones weren't developing properly. So at that time they decided to fortify all the milk with vitamin D3. They used to put cod liver oil or something in the milk. Whatever milk you bought, it had vitamin D3 in it. Once they said, Srila Prabhupada, they put this vitamin D3, cod liver oil. What's cod? It's a fish, yeah. So should we buy the milk? Prabhupada said, what to do in Kali Yuga? Everything is contaminated. I don't know if they still do that, but they used to. So vitamin D3 you can get from the sun. If you can't get enough sun, you can supplement, but it's an important thing to keep our health. Srila Prabhupada would take his massage every day around, he would finish his breakfast at 9:30, and he would get a massage in the sun. Because in your early age, the diseases come because there's too much mucus. But in old age, the diseases come because there's too much air. And when there's too much air in the body, it doesn't circulate properly. So Srila Prabhupada would get a massage to make the life air circulate properly, and so he could keep his health. And he would do that in the sun. So he was getting his sunshine, same time massage. Then after that he would take a bath, and then simultaneously he would dictate correspondence. Every day so many letters would come to Srila Prabhupada, and he would, while he was getting a massage, reply the letters. And the secretary would take the note, then type them out, and give them to Srila Prabhupada for signing. Right? Most of the times, the letters would come from Srila Prabhupada were typed on a aerogram. You know aerogram? They still have aerograms? Nobody even knows aerogram here because they're younger, right? They only know email. Right? It was one sheet of paper. You could buy them. They were already stamped from the post office. And you can put your message, and then you fold them. You didn't need an envelope. Fold them, and then put it in the post office. Post it. And it would go anywhere in the world. So a lot of times Srila Prabhupada would have them type out his correspondence on aerograms. When I wrote Prabhupada that the Rose King, quote unquote, of India had offered us 1,000 rose plants for free, he replied, "Utilize them nicely. There will be flowers for the deities. It will be a great service." Normally we don't think of growing flowers as a great service. We think great service is, I have so many boys, or I made so many members, my boys, I did it. Anyway, but here Prabhupada says, utilize them nicely. Then there will be flowers for the deities. It will be a great service. Narayan engaged up to 12 laborers daily and directed them in laying beds of manure and red soil and planting rose bushes, champak, jasmine, a kadamba tree, and various other flowers. When we were making heaven on earth, they were excavating for the basement. They had to dig pretty deep for the basement. And the kadamba tree that's mentioned here, it was there in the way of the excavation. So in order to make the basement, they were going to have to cut this kadamba tree. So they decided to make the basement around the kadamba tree. Right? They would leave the kadamba. If you look in the basement, I think it's on the north wall of the basement. You'll see that it comes out. It's not a straight wall like that. It comes out like, because that's where the kadamba tree roots were. They left it. Anyway, the kadamba tree died eventually anyway. They must have cut some of the roof. But it lived for quite a while. Prabhupada, like, this bakul tree was not always there. No. The bael tree was there even before the project was built. The bael tree was there. But there was no tree here. But Vijayata Prabhu, who was the Pujari at that time, he told me that right where Radharas Bihari is sitting today, right, there was a beautiful champak tree. Very long. It gave so many flowers. And when Radharas Bihari was on this side, in the hut, right here by where the security and all that is, right around that area, there was a hut. So all those flowers, all those champak flowers, they would use for Radharas Bihari every day. But he was very attached to that tree. So what they did was, instead of cutting it, they dug it up. They dug up that champak tree. Did you know this? And they put it right here. Right. So for many, many years, there was champak tree there. And used to give flowers, right? But then eventually it became old and died. Right? And in its place, they put the bakul and one parijat. I don't know why they put two trees, but anyway, they put 2 trees. And they both gave flowers for many years. But then the bakul kind of won out for the sun and whatever space was there for the roots. And the shivali, in Bengali it's called shivali, in Hindi it's parijat. Slowly, she left. Right? So, Narayan planted some of the trees here. He and Dravida planted a small forest of tulsi, and winding from shrub to shrub was an inlaid brick pathway with benches on which devotees could sit and chant japa. I later reported to Prabhupada that Narayan had, quote, planted bushes, creepers, and flowers in a wonderfully attractive array of flower beds, bushes, and paths. In addition, he put up fence posts all around the garden, cleared wild brush from various places, and put up necessary walls and fences. Again, Prabhupada instructed me, quote, please give him all facility so he can make a good garden on all the vacant land of our property, unquote. In time, however, the difficulty of dealing with Narayan did lead to conflict. I was in the hut one day when Jagat Purush and Raghunath, when Narayan approached me for funds to make purchases for the garden. The temple was financially strapped. Financially strapped. Who can tell me what that means? Strapped, financially strapped. It's American English, it's not British, it's American. It means that there was no money. Tight, bahut tight ho gaya. Paisa nahi hai. Financially strapped. I told him, and there weren't funds available at the time. But Narayan would not accept my response. Prabhupada had personally given him the service of creating a beautiful garden, he argued, and he needed money to carry out the service. He became angry and accused me of obstructing him from carrying out his service to Srila Prabhupada. I tried to explain that there was nothing I could do. I could do until funds were available. But while my peaceful demeanor lessened the chance of Narayan becoming physically violent, it also increased his frustration. His anger, spinning out of control, returned to rage. He seemed like he wanted to rip me apart, and he reared back and spat in my face. That's pretty eccentric, right? Shri Shri Radha Ras Bihari Gornitai Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai. This is eccentric, pretty eccentric. Here, he's telling him, we don't have money. As soon as I get some money, and became so angry, he spit on him. You should never offend devotees. Maybe your devotional service is obstructed, you may think, but you should see it as Krishna's plan. Don't blame the devotees. Right? What Girat Swami will do if there's no money? Right? So unnecessarily he created a fence. Right? Always learn to tolerate. Someone may do something against you, but we have to tolerate. Trinadapi sunichena, tururapi sahisnana, manena manadena kirtaniya sada. Your devotional service can be obstructed by offending devotees. We'll be obstructed, definitely. So we can learn from this, tolerate. Right? Learn how to tolerate. Learn how to control our anger. Right? Then we'll be able to be successful in devotional service, otherwise not possible. We shouldn't be such a difficult person that nobody can manage us. Don't be like that. I remember one time I was in Mayapur, and I was standing there with Dhritarashtra. Remember Dhritarashtra? Now Dhritarashtra I've known since we were both 5 years old. He's a devotee. He was in the Sankirtan office at that time, looking after the marathon. So Giriraj Swami came, and he asked Dhritarashtra, "So, you're okay in Bombay?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm working under Bhima Das. I'm great." And Giriraj Swami told him, "Yes, if you're underneath him, it's very good. But if you're on top of him, it's hell." Narnarayan was still fuming, but the tension in the room had eased. The atmosphere transformed by our concern for an innocent witness, and I bore no grudge against him. I knew he was intent on his service to Srila Prabhupada, and that he was dear to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was dear to him. The Life Membership Program was one of Prabhupada's most important programs in India, and served as a means to distribute his books and engage leading people in devotional service. The first appeal was designed and printed by Shyam Sundar. It featured a photo of Prabhupada's face superimposed on a picture of the globe and expressed the mood and intention of the program. Become a member of Srila Prabhupada's worldwide family. Our homes are your homes. When Prabhupada first introduced life membership, Tamal Krishna pointed out to him that the value of the books we gave the members would eventually exceed the 1,111 rupees members were committing to pay. Srila Prabhupada replied, "The devotees will keep going back to them, and in their lifetimes they will give 5 or 10 times more than the membership subscription." Unquote. We would continue to make new life members, he said, and thus we would always keep ahead. He had devised the program as a way to distribute his books. I'll read that again. He had devised the program as a way to distribute his books. If we just piled them on a prospective member's desk, he told us, the person would agree to become a member. Many life members went on to become our biggest supporters in India, financially and in other ways. Still, Garga Muni complained to Prabhupada that we were not making devotees in India, we were just making life members who gave their money, but not devotees who gave their lives. Prabhupada encouraged him not to feel depressed. Making someone a life member, he assured him, was practically as good as making him a devotee. Yeah, in those days there were very few Indian devotees. When I came to Bombay, mostly all the devotees were foreigners from England and America. Devotees had a problem staying in India because the American devotees needed visa. At that time, India and America didn't have much of a good relationship. India was more aligned with Russia than and America. But the British devotees, the devotees from any Commonwealth country, they didn't need to have a visa. They didn't need a visa. They could stay here. So, devotees like Smartahari and Padmalochan and Puri Das. Puri Das was from Scotland. He didn't need a visa. But we needed a visa. And it was difficult to, they'll give you a visa, but you had to keep getting it extended, you know. You go to the FRO and they would fill up an application, and then they would stamp in your passport, under consideration, extension under consideration. And it would never be passed. It was just always under consideration, you know. And they never would say that, you know, your visa is extended. Just one fine day they would send you a notice, you have to leave, right? Go down to the FRO, it's in Crawford Market, nearby Crawford Market. And go in the building, it's old building, old British style building, up to the 3rd floor. Some, you know, stacks and stacks of papers bundled up. I never understood how they find anything in those stacks of papers, you know. Big stacks of papers in putlis, you know. But there was some system, because they would say, get his file. And Pugin would come back and have your file. I don't know how they did it. There were no computers or anything. And then, you know, the officer would say something and stamp under consideration, could go. But I remember one time I couldn't get a visa. I mean, my visa expired, and I thought I'd go to Nepal and get a visa. I couldn't get visa. So I had no visa for India, and I was in Nepal. So what to do? In the dead of the night, I went to the border of Nepal and India, and I just walked across there's a small river there. It wasn't even very deep, it only went up to about my ankle, and I walked across. I was back in India with no visa. Anyways, long story. We had one life member who was a lawyer. His name was Ashnani. He's in the Kirat Swami's book, Mr. Ashnani. So he would help the temple and he would help the devotees. I remember Prasanatma introduced me. I went to his house and he saw I explained the situation. I don't have visa, this thing. He said, okay, I'll regularize it. I said, okay, good. 5,000 rupees, it was regularized. So devotees had to go through all these things to stay in India. It wasn't easy. And but Prabhupada wanted the devotees to be in India, especially the foreign devotees, so that they could carry on the mission. Prabhupada encouraged him not to feel depressed. Making someone a life member, assured him, was practically as good as making him a devotee. Our business is to chant, so the time that Indian people take to come to hear our chanting and arti and take prasad means that your preaching work is actually successful. For the time being, we should be satisfied with that. And if they become devotees, that's very nice. The only difficulty is the Indians think what we have to learn from the Americans. So the best thing is to somehow or other make them members, raise funds for activities. When someone pays, it means he is converted. Somehow or other, he has to render some service. So if you can collect money from him, that means practically they are becoming our disciples. So do not become spiritually depressed. Actually, these things are going forward very progressively there in India. And I'm very much thankful to you all, my sincere disciples, especially the elder disciples and sannyasis like your good self, for assisting me in this great mission of reviving the original Krishna conscious atmosphere in India. Do not worry, in time we shall be completely successful. Letter dated June 8th, 1972. So now it's 2022. For how many years? 50 years, 5 decades, right? And that time there were no Indians joining, and now there's only Indians joining. Things change, right? Things change. But the movement is going forward, it's going on. People are understanding. They're adding chanting to their lives. It's not that everybody has to join the temple. They simply have to add to their lives the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. The idea is to become Krishna conscious. The idea is for householders is that they should have a family that's Krishna conscious. Right? And therefore Srila Prabhupada wanted a Gurukul system so that the children would learn Krishna consciousness. Prahlad Maharaj said that even from the young age, one should be engaged in devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, the processes of devotional service. And therefore Srila Prabhupada started the Gurukul system. Somehow or another, in the schools that are coming up nowadays, they're accredited to some board, either the Delhi board or the Maharashtra board. Srila Prabhupada did not want the children to go to such schools. Srila Prabhupada called them slaughterhouses. He didn't like them. One lady on Juhu Beach, Damodar Maharaj showed me the conversation. She was an educationalist, and she was trying to convince Prabhupada to have an accredited school. And Srila Prabhupada said no. It was really firm. He didn't want any school that was accredited. Why? He said, because they'll have no time for Krishna consciousness. There's so much in the curriculum that they have to study. They won't have any time for chanting and doing devotional activities. And it's true. From, early in the morning till, in the afternoon, late in the day. And the kids, you see them, they go to school, they got a book bag bigger than they are. They used to barely be able to get up the steps in the Gurukul. Little kids with this big, bag of books on their back. And they had so many, and not only they went to school, but there was tuition. I used to think, what's tuition? In America, there's no tuition. What is tuition? Means after school, again, you go back to school under, some teacher. What is that? What's the use of going to the school if you have to do tuition? What did the teacher teach you then? Huh? You got to learn it twice or what? And then homework. Sure. The Prabhupada said they should learn how to read and write, some simple math. That's enough. The rest should be bhakti. Let them learn bhakti. Show me, everybody had calculus in school, or algebra, geometry. Are you using it today? Why the heck did we learn it? Rather, in previous times, the teacher, means the guru, would teach how to learn the various shlokas from the shastras. They would recite the shlokas from the shastra. There's a big difference. You're memorizing shlokas like the Brahma Samhita. Chintamani paradasatmanu kalparviksha laksha vrisetu surabhira vipalayantam. So this, you're learning these prayers, It's a transcendental sound vibration. It's purifying the heart. It's purifying the atmosphere. It's glorification of Krishna. This is real education. I remember in Vrindavan, the Gurukul kids, every morning they would chant the whole Brahma Samhita for the pleasure of Krishna Balaram, Radhasham Sundar, and Gaur Nitai. Right? All the kids would come and chant Brahma Samhita. And all the Mangalarti sweets would go to the kids. All. Mangalarti. But this is real education. Because character. The education develops character. Right? If one becomes a devotee, all the good qualities of the demigods are there. All the good qualities. Yashyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana. All the good qualities are there in the devotees. Right? Nowadays, nobody cares about good qualities. You can be cheater, liar, duffer. Only you should have money. Right? If the person has money and they say, oh, he's a very big man. This is such a society, naturally there'll be chaos. How can any society progress if the citizens have no good qualities? No good qualities. But therefore, Srila Prabhupada wanted Gurukul. Pretty much we failed. We only have a couple of Gurukuls, one in Mayapur, and some householders are trying to do. We should put together, the householders actually should put together and send their kids. What is the benefit? You raise your children, they become engineer, chartered accountant, but they don't chant, they don't come to the temple. In the next life they take birth again in the material world. You failed. You're not successful. You failed. You failed your children. The parents are just like Guru. And Shastra says, if a Guru encourages the disciples in economic development and sense gratification, it's just like taking a blind person to a well and throwing them in the well. If you take a blind person, come. Mere sarai. The blind person is not seeing anything. So you take them to the well and then you push them in the well. And the well has no water. It's a dry well, very deep. They break all their bones. Is that a very nice thing? So that's the same thing you're doing. If you encourage your dependent in sense gratification, economic development, minus Krishna consciousness. Really cruel. Cruel. And as a parent, you failed. You failed. No, but mere bacha cigarette nahi peete hain. So what? That's a good quality? Understood. Understood. But is he chanting? Is she chanting? This we have to see. And that's why Srila Prabhupada wanted a Gurukul system. He wanted. And the onus is not on the temple. The onus is not on the, the brahmacharis. That's not their business. Right? The onus is on the parents. Make Gurukuls. Send your children to Gurukul. Engineers are not needed. Devotees are needed. Right? There are so many engineers in Russia, so many engineers in Ukraine, and now they're fighting like cats and dogs, killing each other. Who's good, who's bad? Everybody's bad. And it'll come here to India also. Fighting will be here also. Why not? Why should this place be protected? Right? How many people in Bombay are chanting? Handful are chanting the holy name. Mostly are doing all nonsense. India is the #1 exporter of beef in the world. How sinful? Killing the poor innocent animals. Right? It's not just America sinful. Russia's, when Prabhupada went to Russia, he couldn't get food. Only thing was available was meat and vodka. That's what they eat. They eat meat and they drink vodka. You know what vodka is? Huh? Oh, you do? Oh, very good. It's okay. So sinful. How Mother Earth is tolerating. How she's tolerating. She's mother. All the animals are her children. The poor innocent cows. They're her children. And they're slaughtering like anything. Only for the tongue. Right? So, Mother Earth will have her revenge. She'll have her revenge. And her revenge comes in the form of wars. Don't think India is exempted. So much sinful activity. Poor innocent animals suffer like anything. Suffer like anything. And they slaughter them. So the sons of India, they'll also be slaughtered. Time is coming. The only thing that can save the world is this Krishna consciousness movement. By chanting the holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada said, our business is to chant. The membership program was a practical application of the 4th verse of Srila Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamrita for reciprocating with the members in exchanges of love. Dadati pratigrinati guyam akyati prichati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva sadvidhim spriti lakshanam. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad, and offering prasad are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. In his purport, Prabhupada applied the verse directly to life membership. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges between devotees. The society was started single-handedly, but because people are coming forward and dealing with the give and take policy, the society is now expanding all over the world. We are glad that people are donating very liberally to the development of the society's activities, and people are also eagerly accepting whatever humble contribution we are giving them in the shape of books and magazines dealing strictly with the subject matter of Krishna consciousness. We sometimes hold Hare Krishna festivals and invite life members and friends to participate in the feasting by accepting prasad. Although most of our members come from high rungs of society, they nonetheless come and take whatever little prasadam we are able to offer them. Sometimes the members and supporters inquire very confidentially about the methods of performing devotional service, and we try to explain this. In the same way, our society is successfully spreading all over the world, and the intelligentsia of all countries is gradually appreciating our Krishna conscious activities. The life of the Krishna conscious society is nourished by these 6 types of loving exchanges among the devotees. Therefore, people must be given the chance to associate with the devotees of ISKCON, because simply by reciprocating in the 6 ways mentioned above, an ordinary man can fully revive his dormant Krishna consciousness. So these are the instructions from Srila Rupa Goswami. Our membership program is based on this. Offering gifts, accepting charitable gifts. So a person becomes a life member, we give them so many books. Transcendental literatures. Srila Prabhupada said, I'll never die, I'll live forever in my book. So we're giving them Srila Prabhupada. And we should encourage them to read Srila Prabhupada's books. And they give some donation, we accept that. They may ask us some question about devotional service. We explain to them about devotional service. Sometimes they invite the devotees to their home and offer prasadam. And we invite them to temple to come and take prasadam. So these are the 6 symptoms of loving exchange. And this is what develops a relationship. Right? Through relationship, people are interested to increase their interest in Krishna consciousness and to participate through relationship. Everything is based on relationship. Even when you try to sell a book, first thing to do is establish a relationship with the person. Right? We are asking them to take a book, give a donation. They'll think many times, right? But if there's some relationship, some friendship, the book sale is secondary. First thing is, they're inclined because there's some relationship. The most important thing is establishing relationship. Giraj Swami used to say, when he went to a big man, he would bring him some gift, preach a little bit, come back, go again, bring some prasad, preach a little bit, come back. Third time he would meet him, he said usually by the third time I met the person, he would say, Swamiji, is there anything I can do? Then you can engage them. Right? Why? Relationship is there. He's feeling to do something because establishing the relationship, it's so important. And these exchanges, giving prasad, accepting, okay, they want to do some seva, engage them in some seva, right? So this movement is meant for preaching. It's not meant for anything else. The main thing is preaching. We're not meant to have big temples. We can do without temples, right? But if we don't have temples, who will come, right? If we only sit under the tree, nobody will come. So we make a nice temple, elaborate worship of Krishna so people will come, and we have an opportunity to preach. And preaching is convincing them to chant, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Giving them some prasadam. No one should go from here without getting some prasadam, right? Just before Srila Prabhupada left this world, he gave an instruction. He said in all of our temples, we should have sabji, puri, and halava. Anybody who comes should get sabji, puri, and halava. Okay? Cook for 20 people. When it's finished, again cook for 20 people. Always have prasadam available. And at the end of the night, if there's anything left, our men can eat it. Sabji, puri, and halava. So this is very important. This is preaching, having prasadam, nice prasadam for the public, requesting them to chant the holy name of the Lord, and to take one of Srila Prabhupada's books. And our movement is based on this. Our movement will continue if we engage in these activities, and people will be benefited. There doesn't have to be a world war, but it looks like we may have one, we could have one, right? But in order to stop it, we should do more preaching, more chanting, more distribution of prasadam, so that we can save the world. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki